Good evening, everyone. It is great to be back with you tonight. This is our fourth and final part of a series called The Dreamer, Joseph's Life of Faith. Joseph kept his eyes on God the entire time and lived to please God. But did Joseph finish strong? Well, the short answer is yes. Joseph lived for God until his dying day. In many ways, he was like a runner who sped up after he got closer to the finish line, rather than slowing down. It is hard to read his story and not be impressed. Because God was with him, Joseph ran with triumphant faith. And we are given 3 examples of Joseph's triumphant faith. Let's look at these now. Our first example is that he accepted a huge assignment. 2 years after Joseph interpreted the other dreams, Pharaoh had 2 of his own. This caused the butler to remember what Joseph had done for him. So Pharaoh called Joseph to do something that no one else had been able to do. Can you put yourself in Joseph's shoes as you heard the Pharaoh ask the meaning of these dreams? That's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Listen to Joseph's response in Genesis 41, verse 16. Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Joseph's confidence was incredible. That is a big step of faith. You might think, there is no way I could do what Joseph just did. And you would be right. But there was also no way that Joseph could have done this in his own strength. Faith triumphed over fear, and he was able to pick up the pace as he ran his race. As you run your race, keep your eyes of faith focused on God's ability, not your own. Step out in obedience and accept the big assignments. Triumphant faith does not shy away from the huge assignments, but it trusts in God for the courage to do whatever He has put in front of you. Now let's turn our focus to the second example of triumphant faith. But before we do, we need a little background. From Genesis chapter 42 through 44, we discover that Joseph's brothers went to Egypt to buy grain because of the famine. When they got there, Joseph recognized them, but they did not. They were at the mercy of the one whom they had treated so badly. Let's look at Joseph's response. And that is our second example. He let go of past pains, bitterness, and anger. This is an incredible response by Joseph. Keep in mind that Joseph never forgot what his brothers had done to him. He did not have to forget the past in order to get victory over it. Instead of blaming them, Joseph gave credit to God for turning their evil into good. God can help us respond like Joseph if we look to Him in faith as well. We need faith in God, even in our pain. We all deal with pain, some more intense than others. Some of you have been wounded deeply by those you love, and you don't even want to talk about it. To state the obvious, pain is just painful. Knowing that God works all things together for good doesn't take away the hurt, but it can offer hope. Your pain does not have to define your future. Maybe someday God will help you see how He used your setbacks to set you up for future success. But even if you never see it, you can still see God through the eyes of faith. You can triumph over past pain, bitterness, and anger. We have one final example to look at, and we need to be quick. Joseph had his entire family join him in Egypt. He gave them a place to live and took care of them through the famine. Eventually, Jacob, Joseph's father, died. Joseph's brothers were afraid that now he would get his revenge. They were so scared. They sent messengers to ask him for forgiveness instead of going themselves. They focused on what they could do to protect themselves, not on God. And how did Joseph respond? We find in Genesis chapter 50, he says, "Do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." Our last example is Joseph forgave, comforted, and loved unconditionally. Because Joseph saw that God was working out a bigger plan in his life, he had given up on the idea of revenge. He told them that they were forgiven. He comforted and loved his brothers. Faith triumphs over fear and encourages us through Joseph's example. He didn't give up on his faith or even slow down. As he grew older, he picked up the pace. What about you? Will you pick up the pace as you run your race? Today we see Joseph as a hero. But he was only a hero because he chose to live by faith in God, not in his own strength. He kept his eyes on God. He chose to live a life God's way and did not let his feelings tell him how to respond when life was hard. And that is our choice today. Will you choose to live by faith as well? Will you let God make you useful for his purpose? Guys, thank you for joining me through this series, and I look forward to our next one when we get together next week. God bless and stay safe.